Chapter 27. Deterring the Little Curmudgeon. Wow. Gu Hai's face was like a great earthquake, shaking the nearly 10,000 cultivators in the 4 directions in an uproar and noise. Even if it was far away, even if it was raining heavily, the Dafeng gang was in the midst of the clamor. Many cultivators in the VIP area did not come, but, hearing that clamor, they also came out of their residences. Senior, quick, come quickly. Gu Hai has found it. Senior, come to the Colosseum. It's Gu Hai, Gu Hai. Under a burst of shouting, there were clatters and clatters, all the sounds of doors being opened. Nearly all the VIP area cultivators, without even asking what was going on, stepped towards the fighting arena and rushed. The arena. Meng Tai holding the wind chime stood in the corner, staring wide-eyed at the 4 sides of the clamor. This outcry was like a big explosion that exploded in all directions. What was the situation? What had Gu Hai done that was so outrageous? Why was everyone looking at him with red eyes? Chen Chonchen and Gao Xianzi revealed a bitter smile, while the other 3,000 villains were at a loss at the moment. My lord's face, was it really that exaggerated? How did this group of people, who were as quiet as quails just now, suddenly storm out? Not only were they in an uproar, but many cultivators were physically surging over, one by one. They drew their swords and looked at Gu Hai with red eyes. There were more and more people. Is it really Gu Hai? A man in red, who had just come from the VIP area, was about to go forward. Don't, master, wait. Another man immediately pulled him back. Wait for what? Gu Hai is an innate realm. Can he run away? The man in red glared. No, senior, you weren't here just now. That Gu Hai, he just killed an innate realm. Maybe not dead yet. The red-robed man's step forward was instantly stopped, looking at his disciple in disbelief. What nonsense are you talking about? He's an innate realm, killing the Yuanying realm. It's true. Many people saw it. Don't believe me? Ask your senior brother. Many people gathered around, but the same number of people's eyes showed scorn. Gu Hai was really too fierce earlier. The brutality of the wicked people was still fresh in their minds. Now rushing towards that mob, wouldn't that be? Even though many people were scornful, however, there were still many people who surrounded them. At this moment, the 3,000 wicked people were extremely quick to surround Gu Hai in the center, and each one of them looked at the people who were surging in all directions with fierce faces. The 3,000 evil people didn't care what kind of malice others had. Nowadays, all kinds of emotions were mixed. Their loyalty to Gu Hai had reached a new height. Now that someone was trying to do harm to His Excellency, then they were their enemies. Clatter. Each of them raised their swords and pointed at the cultivators who were pouring in from all directions. Standing in the center of the crowd of villains, Gu Hai's eyes roamed around, revealing a cold smile at all those who were hitting on him. Times were different nowadays. He himself was also long gone from the Gu Hai who only knew how to escape a few months ago. Gu Hai, the 100 longevity peach. Is it still on you? A cultivator bellowed. With a loud shout, all the cultivators stopped and waited for Gu Hai to reply. Some of the cultivators at the very front had a complicated look on their faces. Looking at the fierce and evil people, they actually had the feeling of hoping that Gu Hai would answer no more. If we cannot fight, let's try not to fight. Gu Hai, however, smiled coldly and said, 100 longevity peach. It's still here with me. The faces of the 4 parties of cultivators changed. Want it? Come get it yourselves. Let's see if you guys have that ability, Gu Hai said in a cold voice. As he spoke, Gu Hai flipped his hand and took out a jade box from the small token space. And in front of everyone, Gu Hai even opened the jade box, exposing a golden peach in front of everyone. Seeing that peach, nearly everyone was breathless. On the one hand, they were excited to see the peach, but on the other hand, they were shocked at Gu Hai's behavior. Gu Hai, what is this doing? You said that if the peach is eaten, we might not rush our. Gu Hai stared at everyone with an icy gaze. Displaying the 100 lifespan peach was not something Gu Hai loved to show off. After all, Gu Hai had long since passed that age. Displaying the peach had Gu Hai's own considerations. Everyone together. Whoever snatches it is whose. Go, boom. A large number of cultivators rushed towards Gu Hai's direction. Gu Hai's gaze was icy cold as he stood still and didn't move. This didn't require him to move himself. As the crowd of cultivators rushed towards him, the 3,000 evil people suddenly erupted with their ferocity. Roar! With a loud roar, the 3,000 wicked people rushed forward with a bang. Rumble! In the blink of an eye, the two sides engaged in battle. The fighting strength of the wicked people were all-powerful existences that fought 1 against 10. And on the occasion of the battle, they were extremely ferocious. And in a single glance, instantly, hundreds of cultivators were knocked out of the way and flew in the air, spitting out blood from their mouths as they crashed to the ground. On my arm, brutal villains, rumble. In just one round, hundreds of cultivators fell to the ground, wailing, that first person who shouted to rush. But by the 4 villains, each grabbed all 4 limbs and violently yanked, and immediately split into pieces, spilling blood in all directions. Hiss! A large number of cultivators in the 4 directions who wanted to rush slightly stopped. With horrified faces, they looked at the outbreak of battle in front of them. It was too ferocious. Of course, there were more people who hadn't had the idea of joining the battlefield yet, just looking at the battlefield, waiting for an opportunity to move. The battle suddenly stopped. The surroundings were silent, with only the sound of falling rain and falling sweat. Gu Hai smiled coldly. Snap! Gu Hai covered the jade box, and the sound of the cover was like a taunt to all those who rushed in. Gu Hai's gaze cruised over all the cultivators, and under this circle of gaze, many cultivators actually didn't dare to meet Gu Hai's gaze in general. Some with weak mental capacity even took a step back. Looks like you guys won't be able to take it away today. Gu Hai laughed coldly and flipped his hand, placing the jade box into the small space of the token. Countless cultivators stared at Gu Hai. Their faces were complicated. Taking a deep breath, Gu Hai suddenly said loudly, "From now on, we will be the ones to take over the Great Abundance Gang." 3 days later, the Great Abundance Gang's Colosseum will continue to be open to everyone. Those who want to gamble, prepare your bets. Countless people in the 4 directions stared with wide eyes. What? Gu Hai wasn't going to run away. He's going to settle down here. After slaughtering the Great Abundance Gang, he was now going to inherit the Great Abundance Gang's family business. Many cultivators did not understand what Gu Hai was thinking for a moment. However, in the end, one thing was certain: Gu Hai wouldn't be leaving for a while. It was good that he wouldn't leave. The group of people who rushed up earlier to send themselves to their deaths were not organized at all. If they were to organize themselves, they might be able to. No, they would definitely be able to grab the 100 longevity peach. Scar, bring the Zhuan department to give these disciples of the Dafeng Gang, all of them wearing masks, sealing their cultivation, escorting them back to the Wicked Valley, and restoring the Wicked Valley back to life. 3 days later, the Colosseum will reopen. Gu Hai gave Scar an order. Yes, Scar roared excitedly. The crowd of Zhuan's section evil men also roared with excitement. Reversed. Everything had reversed. In the past, they had become slaves and were substituted into the Colosseum to fight to the death. And they, the group of Dafeng Ang disciples, had acted as a bully, killing and taking away, depending on their moods. Today it is the other way round. 3 days later, the Colosseum urged the Great Abundance Gang disciples to kill. Thinking about it, a group of villains are incomparably excited. Where's the pleasure of revenge like this? Then killing this group of enemies is even more enjoyable. Let me suffer. You guys suffer all over again. The crowd of villains were excited, as if they were extremely looking forward to the beast fight 3 days later. Changchongchen, bring the Earth Ministry to repair the beast fighting arena in anticipation of the betting in 3 days, Gu Hai commanded. Yes, all the wicked people of the Earth Ministry cheered at once. Gao Xianzi, with the Heaven Department, give me a raid on the Dafeng Gang. Don't spare any corners, all places, check them all. 2 days later, the big scale will divide the gold, Gu Hai commanded. Yes, the crowd of villains were immediately excited. The big scale to divide the gold was to give the crowd their salaries, although they were loyal to Gu Hai now. But if there were still spirit stones to take, then the motivation would be even greater. Gu Hai twisted his head to look at Meng Tai and whined Bell. Helmsman Meng, you and Win Bell, stay in my Dafeng Gang first to heal your wounds, Gu Hai solemnly said. Meng Tai raised his eyebrows. Your great Feng Gang, this great abundance gang, was what he had pioneered back then. However, at this moment, he did not argue with Gu Hai. Meng Tai had long lost everything. Everything in the Dafeng Gang was fought down by Gu Hai with both hands. Good, Meng Tai nodded. Turning his head, Meng Tai looked towards Li Wei, the plant man, who was not far away, and said in a deep voice, Ancient helmsman, since you have already unmasked this Li Wei, there is no need to live, right? The wind chime in Meng Tai's arms steeply trembled. Gu Hai, however, smiled faintly and shook his head in a resolute tone. Helm Master Meng, I defeated Li Wei, not you. Meng Tai frowned. Gu Hai's meaning. It's not your turn to decide my matters. Meng Tai laughed with a hint of discomfort in his eyes. Likewise to each other. By the way, during these 20 years that you were imprisoned, One Piece Hall Earth Rudder, there is still a Meng Tai Rudder Master, Gu Hai said in a deep voice. Oh, there's another Meng Tai. Heh, it must be that old bitch Dingru is doing, finding someone to take my place. HMPH. Thanks for telling me, Servant Master Gu. I'll take care of it myself. That person didn't cause any trouble for the ancient Servant Master, did he? Meng Tai took a deep breath and said. Gu Hai shook his head staring at Meng Tai and laughed. Trouble? Not so much. That Meng Tai counted on me, and then I killed him. Meng Tai's pupils abruptly shrunk. Listening to Gu Hai's words, it seemed like he was stating a fact, but it was as if he was warning himself with a double entendre. Ha 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 ha, that's good. Meng Tai laughed with an odd expression on his face. The restoration of the Colosseum is still need guidance from Servant Meng. Why don't you? Servant Meng reside near the Colosseum. And if there's anything that Chen Chongchen doesn't understand, he can still ask Servant Meng for advice. Gu Hai laughed. Gu Hai was not allowing Meng Tai to live in the area within the gang. Meng Tai's eyes shifted for a while, looking at the injuries on his body. His heart was irritated, but, on his face, he smiled and said, That's fine. Gu Hai smiled and nodded, turning his head, and looking towards the plant man Li Wei not far away. Gu Hai instructed Shangguan Trace, Bring it with you. Yes, Shangguan Trace answered. Under Gu Hai's arrangement, the crowd of villains moved. As for the countless cultivators in the 4 directions, at this moment, they were not in the process of going forward. Looking at Gu Hai's strutting appearance, countless cultivators were cursing in their hearts. We are here to rob your peaches are. We are here to kill you are. Why aren't you scared at all? Why do you treat us as air? I go to your sister.